Hi everyone, Ollie here and welcome back to the channel once again. We're doing another UKCAT themed video this time, but focusing on the quantitative reasoning section. Essentially, the maths bit. This video is just going to contain a few useful hints and tips that might make your experience a little bit easier. And there's no better place to start than with knowing the basics. So just to start simply with this one, there are a few operations that you can almost guarantee that you will be asked to do virtually every time you sit the UKCAT. And these might be things like converting between square meters and square centimeters, for example, or it could be between 24-hour and 12-hour time, the areas of shapes like squares, circles, triangles, rectangles, and doing things like speed being distance over time and acceleration, things like that. And in my opinion, the best way to approach practicing these types of things is to go through 3 or 4 practice papers. It doesn't really matter how well you do, but make a compiled list of all the different operations that you are asked to do across all the papers, so the sorts of things I've just been through. Write them all down and then basically hammer them so you don't have to think about them too much. You go in with this knowledge already in your head. There are loads of free teaching resources online, and I will link to those in the article that accompanies this video, to which there'll be a link in the description. Essentially, this way you can't be caught out with a surprise question that comes up, and it gives you that chance to pick up every last mark. The second thing I want to talk about is making sure that you have your mental math skills down. And while you are obviously provided with an on-screen calculator in the UKCAT, it's cumbersome and it does take some time to get used to. Therefore, the more that you can do in your head, both quickly and reliably, that's going to be a key thing, the less time you have to spend using the calculator. This obviously means that you waste less time, and that increases your overall mark yield, which is what's important. And just as before, there are a load of free resources that you can use, such as tips and tricks for speeding up your mental arithmetic. So you shouldn't be using a calculator for something like 20 times 50. You should be able to do that sort of level in your head, but no one's going to be expecting you to square 49 off the top of your head. The third thing to mention is knowing when to move on, and indeed that you even can. Different people find different parts of the UKCAT stressful for time, and most, I believe, actually find verbal reasoning the hardest in terms of time pressure. For me, I'm quite a quick reader, so while it was difficult, I personally found quantitative reasoning harder time-wise. And on that note, there will obviously be questions in the math section, some of which you find easy, some of which you find hard, because different people have different strengths and weaknesses. There will be some that you can do in 10 or 15 seconds, and some that seem to take forever, and if you come across one of those questions, I very highly recommend that you move on. The UKCAT website, as of 2018, currently states that you'll have 36 questions to do in 24 minutes. As of right now, the UKCAT website actually states that you'll have 36 questions to do in 24 minutes, and whether you can't do that in your head, that comes down to 0.66 minutes per question, which is approximately 40 seconds. So essentially, if you're doing a question and you reach the 40-second mark and you haven't finished it yet, the best thing probably to do in that situation, unless you're really close, is move on. Try and find another one later that you can do in 15-20 seconds, and then when you reach the end, come back to all the ones that you couldn't answer. Make your best guess now, but I'll come back to that in a minute. The fourth thing is going to continue our theme of basically making the most of the resources that are given to you for the exam, but it's about using the whiteboard if you need to, or the laminated noteboard as the UKCAT likes to refer to it. You will be given this laminated noteboard before the test starts and a marker with which to write on it. And for me personally, QR was actually the section in which I found the board to be most useful, because I used it to write down intermediate values. What I mean by that is if you're working on a question and you have your raw data set, you'll have to apply some formulae or whatever to them to give you some more values. And then usually you'll have to do some more maths to this middling set of values to get to your final answer. And I write down the middling value or values because that means if I make a mistake when I'm doing my calculation, I don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. I do save some time. And it's also quite obviously very useful for visualizing things in geometry problems. If you're being asked to calculate things to do with areas or angles, and you're quite a visual person like me, Drawing them out, having them in front of you makes it so much easier to visualize. The other advantage to this is that if you make a mistake, actually having a visual representation of it is more likely to flag up that something's wrong, because the areas won't quite match up, or wait, these two lines are supposed to be the same length, but in my drawing one of them is shorter. Or this square has more sides than it's supposed to. I just think it's helpful, whatever, but you do only have 40 seconds, remember, so less Da Vinci and more Picasso when it comes to the drawing. Perhaps unfairly, I've poo-pooed the calculator so far. There are some questions that are designed such that you will have to use the calculator. There will be no other option than to do that, because it will be a more complicated question. So when it comes to the calculator, practice using it when you do your test exams, because it is cumbersome, it is difficult to use, and remember that under pressure you're even more likely to make mistakes. Most people, when they're typing numbers in spreadsheets or Word documents or whatever, will use the number row at the top. This is slow, don't do this. Get used to using the number pad on the right. You'll notice that if you go into a bank or any shop where someone is using a manual keyboard, they'll be using the right hand side number pad, because entering a string of digits that way is so much faster. Again, make sure that you practice doing this on another keyboard first, because it's way too late to get used to it once you're actually in the exam. Now, it will feel weird when you start to do it, but once you've practiced and gotten good, it saves so many precious seconds when it actually comes to the exam. And finally, it goes without saying, I touched on this before, make sure you've picked an answer for every single question, and this is true for the UKCAT as a whole, not just this section. If you pick any guess, it doesn't matter which one it is, your chances are 1 in 5 of being right. And better yet, if you can eliminate an answer or two that are sort of obviously wrong, your chances might be as good as 1 in 2. And so many of your marks on the paper are going to come from those ones that you don't know, but where you've made an educated guess. And that, guys, is where I'm going to wrap this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit that like button for me, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this, and don't forget to go and check out my website, postgradmedic.com, for a bunch more free UKCAT resources and interview prep resources for you there as well.